Amazing to see over 70 people joining the session. Mm, well, before we start, let me maybe just let you know what is the plan for today. Because today we are having some special guests. Um, Anshuman and Robert from Augment Code will be joining us today just to give you a brief introduction to their tool, just to present how to use it properly. And hopefully they are just not going to roast me once they see how I do it. I have to say I was really amazed by the quality of the code produced by Augment Code. That's also why we decided to have this webinar today and use it. And surprisingly, that's also one of the best or even the best AI agent for coding if you are a heavy JetBrains user like me. Um, because Augment Code also has a pretty great uh, plugin for all the JetBrains IDEs such as PyCharm or IntelliJ. And yeah, I'm really glad to have you both here today. So, without further ado, let me just start with a very brief round of introduction. Anshuman, would you like to start?
Yeah, for sure. Hello, everybody. My name is Anshuman. I'm a solutions architect at Augment Code. Started off my career as a full stack developer, and then I shifted to solutions consulting in the cybersecurity industry. But when I saw the product and the team here at Augment, I had to join the rocket ship. So excited to share a bit of that magic with you today.
Amazing. Robert, would you like to go next?
Sure, I can give a quick intro. My name's Rob. I'm also a solution architect here at Augment Code on the team with Anshuman.
Amazing. It's really nice to have you both here with us today. And my name is Kacper. I'm a senior developer advocate at Qdrant. And today we'll be having an introduction to Augment Code, and then I will try to present you how to combine Augment Code with OpenAI agents Qdrant and how to connect all the dots here with the MCP servers. Because MCP is currently being the hottest topic, and Augment Code is also one of the clients that you can use together with Qdrant's MCP server, but actually all the MCP servers that make sense in your specific case. Anshuman, the stage is yours. I'm really glad to hear some of your tips.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's share my screen. Do you guys see the slideware?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. So, just as a quick recap, thanks again for the great introduction. My name is Anshuman. I'm a solutions architect, and I'm joined by Rob Kitaoka. So if you have any questions, Rob will be answering them right away. Super excited to show what we've been working to deliver here at Augment. But before we start, let's talk a little bit about the context of software development, right? Especially when you're coding at the enterprise level, it's not just about writing code. It's actually about thinking and changing software, right? The issue is we're always almost working on unfamiliar code. And that's the truth. Especially for those working on larger teams of 20, 70, 100 devs or more, you're always going to find yourself implementing new libraries, working on someone else's code, or even working on your own code from 6 months ago. What this means is before I can even begin writing a single character of code, I need to review things like dependencies, edge cases, data flows, patterns, readmes. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And what we've noticed is as companies grow in size and complexity, so do their code bases. But complex systems are really hard to get into your head. And this leads to an inverse relationship between code complexity and the developer experience. So the reasons I just shared is why enterprise level AI for code was an unsolved problem, right? Knowledge silos are getting increasingly larger. Documentation can be outdated. Tribal knowledge starts permeating multiple teams. And that's why context awareness is the key to everything in the AI for code space. That's where Augment comes in, where Augment has mastered the art of retrieving the most relevant pieces of information for each request in large code bases. So you're going to see the use cases, things like reducing onboarding time, improving the code quality, modernizing legacy code bases, speeding up migrations. These are real world solutions that we're trying to solve with Augment. And it's going to translate for both leaders and developers alike. So without further ado, let's talk about the demo itself. Augment is an extension. We meet you in your environment of choice. So that includes VS Code, the entire JetBrains suite of IDEs. And we even have a native integration for Vim. Now, what we did is 2 years ago, we had some of the top AI researchers in the world, talking about your FANG, Snowflake, NVIDIA, coming in, and they realized that LLMs are really good for generating output, but it doesn't matter what model you pick if the input quality isn't great. So we built out this robust SaaS backend that's able to index large enterprise code bases. I'm talking 300,000 files plus in the workspace, and keep a real-time index at every keystroke. Then our context engine is able to parse through your entire repository, looking at things like interdependencies, what libraries are used, method headers, parameters, readmes, builds, getting all that information. And then we're going to do a combination of actually proprietary and open source models. And we're going to intelligently route through those models depending on the task at hand. So code completions will use smaller modalities to give you snappiness and quickness in response. And then our chat, if you want more complex, more detailed output, we're going to use larger modalities to give you that verbosity and specificity. So when you open up the IDE and you have Augment open, you're going to notice we don't have you pick a model. That's just additional cognitive load, and you're going to get very minimal to incremental value added for the task at hand. For the demo today, I'm going to be working on a large proprietary code base for self-driving cars, so super complex, over 20,000 files, nothing's been trained on this. You're going to notice that Augment by default has already indexed my entire workspace. Now, in terms of setup, I can actually open up my settings and I can go in and add additional context. So I can go in and add more folders, for example, architectural decision records, to determine what type of framework or tool to use, additional libraries that might be relevant, or if you have microservices, additional repos that might be relevant as well. So you can go in and kind of enhance that context. What this allows Augment to do is really understand not only the structure of your code base, but how it functions. For example, I can say, write comprehensive onboarding docs for a new dev on this project. And you're going to notice the speed. Augment's automatically being able to understand what my entire code base does, walks through platform-specific setups, and it's going to go through development environment setup, and it's going to go in and kind of make you quickly understand what the code base is, how to use it, how to initialize yourself. And this really reduces that discovery phase for new developers to the project, new developers to the team, et cetera. But let's talk about a real world example, right? That's kind of where the most common use cases will arise. So it's always going to start off with a ticket or a story. So in this scenario, I have a ticket telling me to add confidence scoring to some sort of image scene data structure, and it's in a block library type of object. Now, whether I'm new to the code base, whether I'm familiar with the code base, it's really impossible to keep 20,000 files of context in my brain, but I can talk to Augment the way I would talk to any 10x dev. I can say, where is the data structure for image scene in block library? And again, Augment's going to quickly parse through my code base for me and then directly lead me to the exact file that I'm looking for and this lane image point data structure that makes sense. Beyond that, it's actually going to give me a better descriptor of how the setup is, so I have a better awareness of where I'm going to. So I can go to that file, it's already highlighted for me, and then I can begin writing code. Now I can use our smart apply functionality where I can just instead of copying and pasting, Augment will put the code exactly where it needs to be in my files, or I can start using our auto completions. So it's going to give me visibility, but because we keep a real-time index, it also takes in recency information where it will understand what I want to do. And now it's going to update for the confidence. Same thing happens for any type of methods I want to add. I can say, I want to add an update confidence method and see if it picks it up. Perfect. Now, the thing with enterprise coding is it's never just going to be 1 or 2 lines of code change, right? It's going to permeate across your tests, your SQL queries, JSON structs. So you notice Augment's automatically populating what's called my next edit. So with the simple keystroke, it's actually going to take me through different parts of the file and then multiple files as well to give me that ripple effect edits without me having to, grok through the code base myself. When I look at them at a, workspace level, I can just refresh the Augment Next Edit panel, and it's going to walk me through all the code changes needed throughout my code base. So that's a quick short summary of comparisons to the first gen type of coding assistants, but let's talk about what everyone's here for, agents. So everything I just showed you is now going to be obsolete with agents. Before we begin, I want to point out a few things in terms of setting up the agent. We have native integrations, so GitHub, Linear, Jira, simple OAuth connect, and Augment's going to be able to call out those APIs to get the appropriate details. We also have a Glean integration now that can be set up, so enterprise using Glean can now access that documentation within the IDE itself. Next, we also have MCP configuration, so you can add MCP servers that you have spun up, and then you can also choose a specific shell you want to use, because our agent can have tool calls such as shell commands and terminal commands within the IDE, also web search and URL fetching. So when I pull up the agent, let's look at one of the histories here. That same ticket I mentioned before, where I want to add this confidence scoring, all I did was tell Augment to explain ticket AU6146. It first goes through Jira, realizes there isn't a Jira ticket, so then it's going to go through Linear, provides me a nice little summary, and then I tell it to make the appropriate code changes. Augment then kicks in the context engine, where it's able to do a deeper search of the code base, find the relevant files, and then it's going to create a nice little implementation plan for me. And we're going to actually read the appropriate files. Instead of doing a fuzzy search, Augment's going to parse through every line and then make the appropriate code edits. So the beauty of this kind of agentic flow is this PR you see right here was submitted by Augment without me having to leave the IDE. It added internal notes, it added customer release notes, and even added a reviewer based on our best practices, my coworker Matt Ball. And I didn't have to leave the IDE at all. I don't have to parse through different browsers. I don't have to look at different documentation. All of that is done through Augment. So let's take a quick real life example here. I'm going to tell Augment that I want to add a Google SSO login button to my front end app. Also say, search the web for the latest OAuth endpoint. So Augment's going to go quickly search the web for me, right? And it's not just going to do a generic Google search. It's actually going to go ahead and do a deeper dive into developer docs, implementation guidelines, so it has the appropriate details, so we hallucinate less. This is, again, where the context engine kicks in, where we're able to look at things like your files, where your cursor's at, relevant code snippets, and because it's aware of the entire code base, you're going to see reduced hallucinations. You're going to see greater quality of code. And you're also going to see that the code matches the syntax and stylings of your own code base instead of a generic textbook style response. Now, while Augment's kind of doing its magic here, I want to point out a few other things we've added in. So one key element with agents is they need to be able to recursively remember certain attributes, right? If the context gets too large, you start seeing hallucinations or going off the rails. So we've added what's called augment memories, where similar to user guidelines, you can go in and give your own specific instructions. So I gave specific implementation guidelines. But then over here, Augment's actually automatically added specific details. So it's added the fact that I want to use Google SSO in the front-end application. It's added the fact that my repository is located at this file path. And it's going to go in and recursively continue adding memories, and it's going to share that context between different agent sessions inside your workspace. So when you open a new thread, you don't have to start from scratch. Augment's going to be aware of the relevant details it needs to keep. Second piece we've added is code checkpoints. So while Augment's going through these changes, right, I can review the different files. I can keep them all or discard them all. And it's going to create a checkpoint for me where now, instead of you having to accept all or none of the agent output, you can set up maybe I like steps 1 through 3. I don't like step 4. Now, instead of reverting back to state 0, I can just revert back to step 3 and then continue on and realign the agent that way. So that's it for my spiel today. I hope you guys got some value out of the presentation here, but I'm going to hand it back over to you, Kacper.
Amazing. Thank you very much for this introduction. I already see there are lots of questions being asked, and Rob is doing a great job answering them immediately. So yeah, if you still have some questions to our colleagues from Augment Code, please feel free to ask them in the chat, in the Q&A section, sorry. But in the meantime, I will just start my part. And I will presenting a live coding demo, and as always with live coding demo, something may go wrong. But yeah, hopefully when I tested that with Augment Code, I really was amazed by the quality of the outputs that was generated. So yeah, I'm pretty sure everything will be fine. Thank you again, Anshuman, and hopefully there will be lots of questions asked to you. You can answer directly during that session. But right now, that's the high time to start working on the project that we promised from the very beginning. And this project might look as if it was a quite complex one, because ultimately we are combining multiple tools together, because we are going to use MCP server, Qdrant MCP server, together with OpenAI Agents SDK, Augment Code, obviously, and Qdrant. That's a pretty obvious choice. But before we start, let me just make a very short introduction to the model context protocol, its capabilities, and generally things that you can achieve with various MCP servers. Not necessarily for coding, but for many tasks that require some sort of integration with external services. And Model Context Protocol is an open standard introduced by Anthropic late last year. It was in October, as far as I recall. And basically, that was a way to standardize how we bring some additional tools to the LLMs. We all know that LLMs were supposed to produce some text that sounds as if it was created by a real human. But apparently we started using them to perform function calling or tool calling. And Model Context Protocol is actually the first attempt, or the first successful attempt to standardize it in some way. And there are four principles, four concepts available in the MCP. First of all, and most importantly, there are tools. And tools are just different external systems, different actions that the model can choose to perform based on the input data. There are also resources which are more like some sort of static files that can be also exposed, but in case of resources, the specification states that if you want to use any of the resources, then you need to explicitly say the client that this resource is needed in order to achieve a certain goal. There are also prompts, and this is kind of interesting because MCP also seems like one of the ways to manage the prompts. And this is pretty interesting idea because prompt engineering is still a thing, and if you work in a larger group, then having a tool that would be also managing all the prompts that prove to be successful makes a lot of sense. And there is sampling, and sampling is actually a way to call the LLM that invoked a specific action, to call it to produce some output. So this is actually like a way to query the LLM itself, which might be also pretty useful. Imagine you have a search engine and you want to take a natural language like query and then parse all the possible filters. So let's say you are looking for a very specific piece of cloth in a specific price range, then this price range should be rather expressed as a filter, not within the query itself. So this is pretty powerful. There is no need to integrate another LLM into your MCP server if you can just do the sampling and use the existing one already. Still, not all the tools support all these principles, and the whole goal of MCP was never to just support all of them. Basically, tools are the most common ones, and they are supported by many different clients, including coding assistants. If you just see the feature support matrix, there are lots of clients. Somehow Augment Code is not mentioned. However, as far as I know, it also supports tools, at least. I'm not really sure about the other components of the whole protocol. And Augment Code would be our MCP client of choice for today's session, obviously. And the MCP server, well, that's pretty clear. we are going to use MCP server Qdrant, which is an official MCP server created by our team. And the whole principle of the Qdrant's MCP server is to provide you with two different tools. It's as simple as that. Qdrant is a vector search engine. So the main reason for using Qdrant in any of your projects would be to solve search somehow. So for that reason, we have two tools implemented in our server. The first one is find, that allows you to just query it using natural language like query to find some relevant entries in the engine itself, and store, which allows to keep some additional information. And our server is pretty generic. You can specify the purpose of the any of these tools using the server configuration. So initially we started as some sort of personal knowledge base. So imagine you use Cloud Desktop. That was the only client at this time. And Cloud Desktop is more for non-technical users, so you can interact with LLMs using that application. And they also allow to specify the MCP servers. So Qdrant in that setup would act as some sort of personal knowledge base, so the model can remember some facts about you, or just remember about some important information that you just pass to it. So imagine you are doing some research with the LLMs, and then you want this model to just store some particular pieces of information into your knowledge base for further reference. So that made a lot of sense at this time, but apparently we all started using AI coding agents such as Augment Code. And then it easily turned out that we can also use that for some sort of inline retrieval augmented generation for the purposes of code generation. I mean, you can not only store some personal facts or build like an internal knowledge base for yourself, but you can also store some useful code snippets that you would like to share across your whole organization. Or maybe you have a very specific version of a library that you would like to use, and then this library might be also internal. So in that case, web search is not going to help that much because it's not publicly available. I mean, the documentation is not known for the model. And in that case, building this retrieval augmented generation like pipeline using MCP servers makes a lot of sense. But you can also store some guidelines for how to write a code, or what are the functionalities that you plan to have, or how things should be implemented. So this is pretty generic. Actually, all depends on the configuration that we set up. But typically, when it comes to AI powered coding, we just store some code snippets along with the textual description. And this textual description describes what is implemented in that code snippet, not necessarily how it is implemented. So imagine you are building a UI and you have an internal UI library. In that case, you can freely store all these examples you may have into the Qdrant's collection, and then just query it in runtime when you code, so the model will ask for some similar snippets. However, during today's webinar, we are also going to add another client to that picture, because Augment Code might be using our MCP server to retrieve some relevant snippets. But on the other hand, there might be like an additional application that will be doing this initial load. So for example, we can build an agentic system, multi-agent system, that will be parsing the documentation of the libraries we want to have stored here in Qdrant. And this system might be just connecting to the same Qdrant's instance. So actually Qdrant will act as a knowledge base for both systems. In that case, Augment Code will be more working in a read-only mode. So it will only fetch some relevant snippets based on the functionality you would like to implement. And OpenAI agents based application will be more ingestion pipeline. And this is pretty typical for any kind of search application. There is a pipeline that puts data into the engine, into the search engine, and then another application that just querying it. So let's build it. Obviously, the materials are open source, and our MCP server is available on GitHub. It's also open source. If you would like to build like an extension, please treat it as if it was a template. But many people are just satisfied with using it as if it was a tool. So without further ado, let's just go straight to the implementation. This repository is already public, so you can also follow along and try to achieve that in the same time as I will be doing it. And let me just demonstrate how we can implement this retrieval augmented generation for coding using Augment Code. But first of all, let me just open a project. Okay, I just need a second to switch to another window. And I hope you can see it already. It's VS Code. As I mentioned, you can also use, also Anshuman has mentioned that too, but you can also use a different IDE of your choice. And actually, the Augment Code extension for JetBrains has introduced MCP support recently. I just started building this application in VS Code, so that's why I use it. But I'm a big fan of JetBrains IDE, so probably I would just start with Python right away if I was about to do it again. And this project is pretty straightforward. I mean, there is an application created in OpenAI Agents SDK. I just wanted to put it on test. OpenAI agents also support MCP servers, so I thought that would be like an obvious choice for making it. And the README describes the whole setup of the project, also how to set up the environmental variables. We are just gonna review it in a few seconds. Basically, you just need to specify the URL to your Qdrant instance, optionally API key if you use cloud version. Collection name, that's pretty obvious for all the Qdrant's user that we have today. And you can also specify the descriptions of both tools. So this description is used by the LLM to choose or to decide whether this particular tool should be called given the query, given the input data. And the same goes for the find description. So you can specify the tasks for which these tools should be used. And that's the only piece of information that the model can use in order to choose a tool. So please be careful and please just spend some time on tuning that. This is just a prompt engineering task, so to say. And everything is actually enclosed within the main file of this application. So here, nothing special. I'm just doing some imports, setting up the login and loading the environmental variables. But then I'm setting the connection to the Qdrant's MCP server. So this is, I'm using UVX, which is a Python packet manager that allows to execute a particular package. So this package, MCP server Qdrant, is the official implementation of our MCP server. So I'm just running it as if it was a script and declaring the transport protocol, which is standard input-output. Then I specify the environmental variables. So this is pretty common. I also specifically say to cache the list of the tools. Like the list of the tools may vary over time. Like there might be like an extension of the server, but for our purposes, it's good to just cache them once at the very beginning and reuse them later on, because we are not going to remove any of that or add any new tool. I'm also giving it a name and setting some timeout, but that's not that important. And there are like two set of agents that I'm using for the purposes of that project. So first of all, I just need to read it from the bottom up, because there are some hands-off between the agents. Actually, the OpenAI Agents SDK is pretty straightforward. There are not that many abstractions. You have agents, you have hands-off, you have guardrails. And that's basically it. There are no higher level abstractions. So you are building the agents and just connecting them to each other. You can specify which agents can hand off a specific task to a different agent. So this is like building a graph of the processing. Obviously, LLM makes a decision on when to call a specific agent. So everything starts with a parsing agent. This parsing agent assumes that it will receive a query, and this query will specify, I want you to scrape a documentation of this particular package. I only focused on Python, to be honest, because that's the language I will be using today. Obviously, you can adjust the instructions. One important thing here is that if you use handoffs to just send the task to a different agent, it's good to just use this function that will add this recommended prompt prefix to all your instructions. So this is what proved to be working with Agents SDK, and that's why I'm doing that whenever I have hands-on specified. And that happened here. Actually, this parsing agent should specifically parse the input query, extract the name of the package and possibly a version of that package, because the next web search agent actually accepts this model. So there is a package name and optional version. And then once the parsing agent does this job, it just forwards the parsed version of the input to the web search agent. And this web search agent has a more sophisticated responsibility, so to say, because it needs to find the documentation of that package using the web search tool as defined here. So it's no longer just trying to guess based on the internal state of the model that performs that. But if we ask for a very specific version of a particular library, we expect this web search agent to just find it using the web search tool provided by OpenAI, of course. So there is another instruction, but since this agent does not hand off a task to a different agent, there is no need to add this prefix anymore. So here I just made like a list of the requirements. So first of all, I expect the system to return a list of the package documentation model, which is again package name, version, and documentation URL. And this documentation URL should be like a root URL that points to some sort of documentation containing examples of how to use that project. But also, it might be like a documentation of the server. In case of Qdrant, if you go to our website, the documentation of the server actually contains all the examples of how to use Qdrant together with different in different languages. So there is no need to get a very specific like documentation of a particular SDK, but you can freely go directly to our main website. There might be also a developer portal, so that's another case that I allow to happen. And finally, if none of this work, we can also get like a technical documentation generated from the source code. Sometimes you have doc strings that are translated automatically to the documentation. This is also fine. However, from my experience, it's always better to just go straight to the main page of the whole project. And we expect up to four results. However, in some cases, if there is no such a package, it's also fine if we do not return any results. So this is the first part of this processing chain. This is actually a multi-agent system, but I didn't allow all the agents to communicate to each other because there is another set of agents that I declared. And here I also need to read it from bottom up. The documentation parser agent actually takes a URL of a particular page. Actually, not a URL, but this is HTML scraped from that website. So here is the whole logic. I'm just gonna review it quickly, but basically the first set of agents is returning us a list of possible documentation websites, and then we are just iterating over all this website just to recursively find and scrape all the sub pages so we can have like a full picture, and then we visit all the URLs and download the HTML. So actually, this agent here takes an HTML document, not an URL, and parses the data to extract all the information in a markdown formatted text. So the whole idea behind this agent is to get rid of all the boilerplate, like headers, footers, and everything that can be put on a website. We are just going to return the actual content of the documentation. In the meantime, I can already see there is a question that I can answer. Sorry, I'm not sure if I missed this, but we would get access to this webinar Agents MCP GitHub. Yes, actually, I already shared a link, but this will be also linked on YouTube in the description of the video. So let me just mark it as done. So this is the first agent in this another set of agents, and it just produces a markdown formatted text just to make sure it's relatively easy to parse it into chunks, because the next agent is doing the chunking. Here, I'm just letting it know that it is a developer and it is given a markdown formatted text that needs to be cut into pieces, into multiple chunks, and these chunks should be a single code snippet along with some natural language-like description. So this is it, and the output is actually a list of code snippets. So each code snippet is an actual code along with the textual description of what exactly it does. So this is it. Actually, all the logic behind is just running both sets of agents. I just didn't want to have like a whole agentic workflow. It just didn't prove to work that well. In reality, when I just allowed these agents to pass the context, just because I was easily exceeding the maximum context window length. So apparently, it's way easier to just build a set of agents doing a very specific task, like in this case, extracting the documentation websites, and then parse them manually or just write the code in a traditional way. And then finally run another set of agents that will be doing the chunking. Obviously, I could maybe use one of the chunking methods that are known to work okay, like semantic chunking, but actually I really like to use LLMs for that. That's just way easier. Okay, and we have it. In the meantime, another question. Can you please specify, please describe briefly the meaning of the end variables needed to provide for this repo? Collection name, tool store description, and tool find description. Actually, that should be way more clear if you just go straight to the MCP server Qdrant repository, because we documented some typical descriptions of the tools, and collection name is just a name of the collection in your Qdrant instance. So if you use Qdrant for different purposes, you just want to make sure that your data is not mixed in a single collection and that you keep it separate. So this is like a table name in relational databases. And this is it. Actually, if you run this main file, it will collect the documentation for the Django semantic search. And Django semantic search is my side project, an open source library that makes it really easy to integrate vector search into Django applications. So this is not a huge package on its own, but basically it's just very easy. It's just very easy if you have an existing Django application and just want to have this additional search capabilities. Like Django search itself is rather limited, and semantic search is usually a way to go if you would like to support multiple languages, for example, or if your queries are just quite long and do not contain that many keywords. And that's actually it when it comes to this script. I can run it and it will just perform all the steps It will also automatically run the MCP server, a local instance of the MCP server. You can see the logs here. It is just scrolling all the URLs from the documentation of the package. One thing to note is that let me just stop it for a while because I already have all the data inside of my Qdrant instance. I'm gonna share them in a second. One thing to note is that even though OpenAI agents have a native way to integrate with the MCP servers, you can just specify MCP servers as another parameter. I was struggling with getting them to work properly because the LLM was quite often hallucinating and not filling some of the parameters, even though I expected it to provide these parameters. So that's why I just implemented this integration on my own. You can also do it because we have a Qdrant MCP server instance, and we can call a specific tool along with some arguments. So Qdrant Store is a tool that I need to call when I have a code snippet, and information is a textual description of what it does, and the metadata expects at least a single attribute, which is a code snippet that implements that certain thing. And if I just present you with the cloud UI, I just need to again switch to a different window. Maybe let me do it like this. Okay, so here you can see I have multiple collections. This is my personal cloud instance of Qdrant. I just use it for my side projects and also for some experiments. You can see that how this collection looks like. So there is like a document, and the document is a description of what exactly this particular piece of code does. And there is also a piece of code scraped from the documentation. And Augment Code could also use the web search to perform the a lookup and find the documentation on its own. However, that could also be an internal library that you created solely for the purposes of your company, and then it will be just unknown. But here we have everything, and that actually gives us this ability to do some coding with Augment Code. Because right now I have this project that just scrapes the data from for a specific package, and I can use it because I have set it up in Augment settings. Here I have a Qdrant MCP server specified with the environmental variables. So here is how it looks like. And someone asked about this description. So here this is pretty straightforward. We have a description for the find tool, search for relevant code snippets using natural language, something about the parameters, and here the description of where, when this tool, the store tool, should be called. In case of Augment Code, I don't really expect it to store any information at all. However, if you are developing this internal tool, then maybe it makes a lot of sense to just store these examples when you just work on them. So here it is. I can right now, let's say I would like to create a Django application. Obviously, if you want to use Django semantic search, I have to do that. So let me just switch to agent. And please implement a basic Django application. Directory will be simple Django app that has a single model. That might be a to-do list, for example. It's a to-do list like application. Please generate basic create, read, update, and delete operations. Simple front end. Okay, and here I expect it to just start working on it. Obviously, I could start the Django application using the commands that are just used for that, but it will automatically hopefully it will automatically handle all the commands on my behalf. So it will check the dependencies in the project, in my pipe project setup. One thing that it's worth mentioning is that I also have these argument guidelines as suggested by the docs. And here in the guidelines, I'm just specifying some hints for the Augment Code plugin extension that lets it know that I want to use poetry for package management, not pip or pipenv. That I want to not write nested code too much, that I want to use break and continue early on. So it made some edits in pipe project. So it added Django, which is nice. I can just install them. Okay, and here I see that there is an error that pipe project has changed significantly, and I need to run this another command like log. So I'm doing that. The output of each command that I run is also sent back to the model, so it knows what was the response, and it can just self-heal itself. And in the meantime, once the application is built, let me just see the questions. Can you give it a link to the webinar OpenAI MCP report? Of course, I can send it using chat. I think I can do it. Yeah, there is chat. So here is the link to the GitHub repository with all the materials from this webinar. Obviously, we still do not have this application that I'm gonna hopefully build in a few minutes. Right now, we can install the dependencies again. The log file was refreshed, so this is fine. And yeah, it will create the directory for the project. And right now, I have to specifically confirm every single operation that the agent will try to run, which is okay if you still doubt that it can create a code that you would like it to. So that's nice to have this control and human in the loop. It will run some commands. However, if I here switch to agent auto, I won't be asked to confirm any of the actions anymore. So this is nice. If you just want to do some vibe coding, you can automatically accept all the changes made by the system. And yeah, just looking up for the files inside of the directory created. Something is missing, so let's just see what's gonna happen. And yeah, coming back to the guidelines I created, there is also another guideline to use Qdrant's find tool to search for code snippets related to Django semantic search. We haven't really started using Django semantic search yet. We are just building this basic application structure just to see whether it can work. It's just going to take a minute or so, but then we'll be just incrementally adding some new features into the system just to see whether we can build that too. So right now, Django semantic search is not listed in the project requirements, but we are gonna add it pretty soon. It's just doing some basic Django stuff here, like adding the admin panel for the newly created models. You can actually see the changes here. Here is how the task model is gonna look like. There is a title, the description, some status and status. There are different possible values for the status. Some due dates. Actually, that sounds to me like a pretty reasonable to-do list application. So that's really, really nice experience so far. Yeah, in the meantime, the admin class for this particular model has been created too. So if I launch this app, I should also be able to just manage all the tasks that I have there. Okay, it's just taking some time. I can also send some hints even when the code is being generated, which is nice. Yeah, there was an issue in sending the message, so I will just try again. However, in the meantime, my app is just being built. Right now, it just starts to build the views for the newly created model. Okay, once it's been just coded, let me just answer some of the questions. I see there's like an issue with running the MCP. Okay, there's something about like IO operational closed pipe. I think this is more related to the configuration. I would really appreciate if you could just share like the details of how you run it. That might be just caused by some timeouts, and they might be just they may just require to be set up to some higher values. Okay, another question is, we have an existing Django application. How to index it so that all developers can use the agent connected to Qdrant where code being indexed in VS Code. So actually MCP server is a pretty natural choice for that. And Qdrant might be just hosted externally, so you don't need to have it running on your machine, but the MCP server will be just connecting to a remote Qdrant instance. So you can share the it within the whole organization, and then just use a local instance of the MCP server. However, there is also another transport protocol for the MCP servers. It's not that broadly used, but it's based on server-side events. So in that case, you could also host the MCP server on a separate machine, and all the devs can connect to the same MCP server and then communicate with the same Qdrant instance. I'm not sure if this is in the roadmap for Augment Code. I'm pretty sure it is, but basically that's a way to solve that if you don't want all the developers to just run a separate instance of it. And how you describe the best architecture for work with big documents like a legal corpus, because every day we can find new laws. Yeah, there is some management needed for that. Like obviously this is like a very naive way to implement it that assumes that nothing is gonna change in that. But in real life, you also need to manage the documents, remove the stale ones, replace them. And when it comes to legal documents, they do not have like a due date. However, they might be just removed when they are just expired, so to say. So yeah, like I'm not sure if that's really related that much to the architecture, but more to the data management. Typically, when you build this kind of services, there is some sort of ingestion pipeline that puts the data in the search engine, and then clients just read that data from it. So this ingestion pipeline should possibly also manage that too. So if you follow the demo, we are just running some of the Django commands, like making some migrations, now creating the super user account. It will ask for passwords. It is all admin. So I'm just gonna bypass this password validation. So that has been done. Let's just wait until it's finished, and it will run the development server. So what was the output? I can't see the output. Okay, so a different path should solve that. Yeah, development server is already here. Let me just display that so we can all see the same view. So here is how our app look like. I can just split the screen so you can see the application and VS Code too. So here we have some views. I can add a new task. So let's call it finish the webinar on time, because we still have like 5 minutes. No description. It's pending. Due date is today. And let's just save it. So I have a to-do application created in no time. I don't really even know what exactly happened here. So let's just start a new session, and let's switch to Agent Auto So I won't need to confirm any of the actions. So please use Django semantic search and add search capability to the to-do app. Search bar should be visible on all the sub pages. So I expect the search bar to be displayed somewhere here. So I can just find some of the tasks based on the description. In the meantime, I just noticed that I didn't specify the fields that I want to be able to search over. So I want to be okay. And one important thing is that it already called the Qdrant find Django semantic search installation and usage example, and that's what I wanted to present also. Because I switched to agent auto mode, I didn't have to confirm that action, but that actually provides some of the results. And here you can see how the output is going to look like. The command for installing the Django semantic search library using pip to install. And actually, this comes specifically from the documentation of the package itself. So I'm making sure that the LLM is not going to find a different materials, possibly some malicious code that will force it to install a different package like Django semantic search 2, for example, if someone would create that. And that gives us this ability to specifically use our knowledge base. So this is nice. Django semantic search implementation with models and search views. That's nice. This is how to set it up. And actually, lots of interactions with our MCP server, which I expected. Some actions to create some templates, actually, to modify the templates. And there is already a plan of how to implement that. It already has all the information on how to work with Django semantic search. So that should be pretty obvious. And right now, it's just running all these commands required to set things up. Okay, it will install all the dependencies. Right now, we can see how PyProject tone is looking like. Let's just go straight to the project definition. There is another dependency declared, which is nice. And yeah, code is just being modified. Let's see how settings are going to look like after this. Okay, so it added Django semantic search to the installed apps. That's something that I expected it to do, just because that's what you do in your Django applications. And then I expected it to add the configuration for Qdrant. So this application is just being created in the meantime. If you are not familiar with Django semantic search, then let me just clarify that a little bit, because what you need to do if you just want to be able to search over some models is you need to create a document class that will be registered for that particular model, and you need to create indexes on the fields you would like to be able to search over. So that's how things work. I wanted to be able to search over titles and descriptions of the task, which is nice. And then it just modifies all the files. So base HTML file is already modified. So if I just refresh that page, okay, it actually stopped the development server in the background, because right now it's just working on some changes. So probably it will just start it back again in a few seconds once all the changes are done. But you could already see, like, I didn't specify too many details of how things should be implemented, because it directly used this MCP server setup to support the search over the documentation of the package I wanted to have. So this is really nice way to incorporate some additional documentation, some additional guidelines to your projects. It's not necessarily limited to code documentation, but that might be anything like style guidelines if you create front end, or maybe code style guidelines if you really want to force the system to, let's say, divide your components in a non-standard way. For example, you would like to have a Django application that will be structured a little bit differently to the traditional Django application for some reasons. You can also use the MCP server for that. And if you also integrate it with GitHub, you could also create these issues in GitHub and automatically transport them, like take the context from the GitHub issues and translate it to the requirements of your application. So right now it's just dealing with some problems. I see that it tries to use sentence transformers. Let me just stop it. I want to use Qdrant backend in Django semantic search and fast embed for the model. So I can also do these changes when it's still working, because you can see that maybe some of the comments are not the ones that you would expect it to produce. And in that case, you can also modify the behavior directly. So yeah, it will make all the required changes. So it will install the fast embed extras in the project. It will remove the sentence transformers. I don't want to have sentence transformers because sentence transformers are pretty heavy, and fast embed is a pretty lightweight library for creating the vector embeddings. And in case of web applications, that makes a lot of sense. You don't want to use like a very sophisticated backend, because then your web server is gonna need a lot of resources just to handle that load. Yeah. Okay, let's see what's gonna happen. Still needs some time. Maybe it would be just faster if I just specified some more details. Unfortunately, I just gave it a very vague definition of what I want to achieve. Still, I hope it's gonna be fixed pretty soon or implemented pretty soon. Okay, something is happening with the dependencies again. It's just trying to install dependencies. I don't really want to install or update anything. Let me just stop it for a while, because there are no dependencies to install. So everything should be fine with the dependencies. Are fine. Please just set model, set the backend and the model up, and run the web server. So I just realized there may be some troubles with the dependencies, or like the system trying to install them again. So I just asked it specifically to stop doing that and set up the configuration. It will try to connect to Qdrant running on localhost. I should have Qdrant running on localhost. So let's just see whether this is gonna run. So it still haven't configured the embeddings as far as I can tell, but let's see. Okay, so this is killing the process. I can also check the dependencies on my own and the settings of the created application. So maybe that will be just easier to do. We have some default embeddings. It uses fast embed, which is okay. Pi project. Okay, sentence transformers are still declared here, so I'm not sure why. But okay, let's just keep it as it is. Okay, and that's exactly what I wanted to avoid. please do not install just fast embed, because there are some heavy dependencies that being downloaded in the background, like NVIDIA libraries. So let's see what's gonna happen. Sentence transformers are just removed. That's something expected to happen. And settings should never contain this sentence transformers anymore, so that should be okay. Okay, maybe something is happening in the documents, so maybe that's something that we should have a look at, because the documents, oh, actually they do not define anything regarding the model. Okay, that's gonna take a while as far as I can tell. So let's just give it another minute or two. Because some challenges are just happening in the background. Yeah, and actually it just found a clever way of how to overcome a possible issue. I'm not certain that this is a real issue. However, yeah, it actually declared a different method that will be called when the app is ready, just to avoid any issues with imports that can happen. It's finally making some changes in the settings. I do not expect any issues here. Actually, as far as I can tell, that should be all fine. Okay, I'm not sure what exactly happened here. Okay, let me just stop it for a while. Please use that's the latest version. So I expect it to be like error free, and that's the last attempt to make it work. That's a rather typical issue. Actually, I realized that we specified one of the previous version. Right now, it's fixed, but there could have been some issues with setting things up. So let me just try to set it up for the last time. So it's trying to fix the documents, again, using the register document, which is nice, something I expected to happen. This method is now gone. And let's see what's gonna happen. And this session is becoming pretty long. Actually, I would probably just stop it and if it's not successful, I'll just stop it and try once again with a through session just to free the context. Because it still tries to load something like, yeah, let's just stop it. Let's keep all the changes and let's review it. Because I would expect it to work already just by looking at the settings it created. So we have the default embeddings, we have a model, which is fast embed model. Nothing wrong here as far as I can tell. It looks okay to me. So okay, let's configure Django semantic search. To use fast embed with Qdrant. It's way faster now because the context is not that huge as it was before. Okay, and again, it's just communicating with the Qdrant MCP server, which I wanted to have. So that's the plan. Pretty short one. So let's see how the settings are gonna be. setup. Right now, web search is being used because probably like the documentation didn't contain that specific issue that happened. So this is just checking the GitHub repository. That may happen too. Actually, that's also something that I would like to have if it's running in agent mode. But okay, I see that this is going in the wrong direction, unfortunately. I know what is the issue right now, so let me just fix it on my own. So I would spin it up in memory. That will be or maybe localhost is just fine. And fast embed dense model is actually the right name of the class. So let me just go to the and that should do the trick. Python. Okay, I'm not really sure what happened here. Unfortunately, I'm not really convinced we can fix it that soon. However, the basic application was created, so hopefully you can see like there is a huge value in creating prototypes with AI coding. And MCP servers might also be pretty interesting in that case. Just if you would like to incorporate some additional knowledge into an existing system. So I'm really sure that this Django application will be ready in a few minutes. I just don't want to keep you all and watching me trying to fix that. Probably there was like a small issue with the wrong documentation version that I scraped. However, the webinar repository will contain all the details updated with the Django application created, and this will be definitely a running version. So please expect it to be published relatively soon. I would say in less than 30 minutes from now. And there is also a last question before I let you all go. How do you manage project context? Because projects generally begin to break down when the agent begins to forget the structure or important elements of the project. Actually, here I just expect the argument code to do it on my own. I'm just providing MCP server, and that's basically what I can do. However, as we all got to know at the very beginning, there is some indexing of the code base happening. So that means that Argument Code should automatically handle, and Anshuman actually presented how it deals with a very huge project, like over a few thousand files. So I'm pretty sure they do it properly. But that's a challenge, actually. Like that's probably one of the reasons we do not see that many people building their own coding assistants, because that's a real challenge to have like a working system in just little time. That requires a lot of efforts. Even building the retrieval system to provide in context hints for code is not that easy. And okay, that will be it regarding the today's session. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to finish the whole application. This whole vibe coding stops to work when I start doing live sessions. But I really promise you to deliver a working application soon, and we'll share a link, hopefully, to a running version of the application in the description of the video that will be published on our YouTube channel. And if there are no other questions, thanks for joining the session today, and please stay tuned because we are gonna have another webinar happening soon. Thanks. See you.